July 15th meeting of the Katuitt Water Commission. Mark Robinson, Chair, with Commissioners Hoppenstadt and Horsley, and with Chris Wiseman, Superintendent, Jen Nash as staff. The typical thing that we like to do is to ask for any public comment at the beginning of the meeting. And then as we go through, if there are issues that people would like to weigh in on, we'd be happy to take some comments. Just raise your hand and I'll recognize you when it's that time. Jen, do you have an agenda that you can paste up here, post up?
Not on my home computer, no.
Okay, all right.
I have your slide.
All right, so what do you got there, Chris?
So, public comment and then superintendent.
Public comment, so I will now ask for indeed the public comment. Is there anything anybody would like to say on any general matters before the commission? Yes, Julie?
Hi, I live over at 701 Main Street, and Jen and I have had a few emails back and forth last week. We're no longer able to get packages delivered at our home. The USPS says that the little road that my driveway connects to is no longer passable by their vehicles. But we noticed that it's passable by your vehicles because they come down each day, multiple times a day, to come check on the water treatment plant that lives behind our house. So 699, 701, there's 4 of us. And y'all are so wonderful coming down. You're careful about our plants and our kids, and we so appreciate that. So I wanted to know if this is something we saw, I believe it was in May, folks from town came and rolled it out. But we wanted to know if it could be considered for paving so that mail trucks could also access it. We noticed that it's paved right down at the bottom of the hill, closer to the water treatment system, whatever's down there. But at our end, there's quite a big divot. Mike next door is in a wheelchair. For any of you who do that route, I'm sure you know Mike. And it's getting harder for him to get up the lip that meets Main Street because every time it rains, you get bigger holes the way these things do. So I've petitioned Postmaster Pam, anything we can do to help. And she says, no, it is just too dangerous for her to come up that lip and have her folks make the left back onto Main Street. And in a pandemic with small children, I don't want to go to stores. I want stuff delivered to me. So now just about every day, we're going to the post office and getting our cereal, paper towels, and things. So I'm here tonight to find out if that's something that the board would consider.
Okay, well, let me start and then I'll ask for Chris, but I used to live at 689 Main Street for many years.
Oh, so you know the place.
And yeah, I was the 12-year-old throwing rocks at the well down at the bottom of the hill. I've confessed that to Chris many times. So
I have the 12-year-old boy who's running around with a soccer ball. So yeah, I know that.
And as far as I know, that's a private driveway. It's not an official road. So the people who use it, who have driveways using that access route, it's very similar to the house I have now off Main Street, where it's a private road. And the people who live on the road are responsible for the upkeep of it. But so, I think it would behoove the neighbors to get together and make the improvements that the post office is asking for.
Okay, so even though town of Barnstable came and rolled it out, that's why as neighbors, we thought that it was owned by the town because of the access to the water.
Yeah, they used to roll out the my driveway here on Todd Way, but
okay.
They don't do that anymore either. So in fact, my neighbors and I have just pitched in $500 to put down some bluestone on it. So,
okay.
But that is, I guess the only difference here is that, the water department is not part of the town of Barnstable.
Right.
And Chris, I know you've used that road for many years. So why don't you give an opinion?
Yeah, the only thing that I really know, I believe you're talking about the lip at the end, just as you get to Main Street.
That's right.
And over the years, it has seemed to have gotten a little harder to make there. So maybe they're bottoming out or something to try to make that. I don't know if there was more of a gradual slope there or something like that, if they'd be more open to it. I haven't talked to Pam about it down at the post office. That might be something the next time I'm in there, I'll talk to her and see if there's something that can be done. I'm putting more of an apron there, I guess I want to say. I'm
Sure.
pretty sure it's still considered West Street because it used to go all the way through to where our tank is.
Okay, I didn't know
But
that either.
I just had rumors of that. I don't know for sure. I've never got anything from the town on it. We do help out by plowing it sometimes during the winter. We don't always do it because sometimes if it's too tough to get in between, we've got ourselves into jams there. But we do try to help because we do use it to get to our well as much as we can. So even if it takes something even if we get some leftover loam leftover dirt from a job or something that we could pour over there just to try to keep that hump as much, I'd be willing to try, but I would hate to get in there and have to keep maintaining it. That would be my only problem.
No, thank you. I understand that, and I appreciate the consideration.
And I'll
here.
try to get back to you. I'll talk to Pam when I go in there. I'm supposed to be going in within the next week or so to see her. So
Thank you.
I'll ask her if there's something more that could be done there.
Thank you from us, and also from Mike, because I think Phyllis might be 85. She shouldn't be in the post office picking up packages, and Mike can't do it with the wheelchair.
Correct.
So
Correct.
there's all of us who are kind of feeling it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
It seems like if you wanted to get together and have it paid, that it probably wouldn't be a problem for that pump house, right?
No.
I mean, they might want to put a storm drain in there somewhere to collect any runoff before it went down the hill. But other than that, whatever you guys think you need to do to make it accessible for all the residents there, I think that's a good idea.
And the town of Barnstable would tell us if it's private or not? Because again, I've never owned a home on a private road like that. And so I guess I had always thought that would come up when we passed papers, and it never did.
It might not be private because like Chris said, it used to be West Street used to go all the way through there.
Okay.
Some of the old firm roads are not private and some of them are. I don't know about it.
It's never been West Street at that end of it though. It's always just been the private drive. West Street is really a dead end off of Old Oyster.
Yeah.
But Julie, I think that if you want to get your neighbors together and have a truck come in with some bluestone, it's not that expensive, and maybe the department could kick in $100 or something towards it. So
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. And maybe
keep us posted.
Yeah, and I'll double check, or maybe Chris, if Pam comes forward and says, if we do that, she'll give it an earnest effort. I don't want to go getting all the neighbors throwing money and then have her say, it's still left and it takes us too long, so we can't do it.
Yeah. Okay.
So that would help, just having
No
somebody
problem.
else.
And
We're
like
still
I said,
pretty
I'll try
new
to-
here, so somebody who's been here a long time, I know that might help a lot.
Right. And I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can on that.
Thank you all so much.
No
Have a nice
problem.
night.
Thanks,
Is there
Joe.
any other public comment at this point? Yes, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a statement that I'd like to read relative to the regulation that you people are discussing about in-ground irrigation systems. I'll start with reading that. To date, the commissioners have demonized automatic in-ground irrigation systems. They have hastily introduced a moratorium on the installation of new systems, even though most systems use water in a more efficient manner than hand watering lawns and gardens. I am afraid that the water commissioners are experiencing a phenomenon called groupthink. This phenomenon occurs within a group of people in which the desire for harmony or conformity results in irrational or dysfunctional decision-making outcomes. The problematic or premature consensus that is characteristic of groupthink may be fueled by a particular agenda, or it may be due to members having valued harmony and coherence above critical thought. The commissioners must acknowledge that the increased water usage in the summer months is partially due to manual hand watering of lawns, gardens, and the increase of usage due to summer-only residents. If not already done, I recommend quarterly readings of water meters to better understand water usage and identify users excessively using water outside the home. In 1935, the Water Department was created and was accepted at an annual meeting of the district to supply water to the inhabitants for extinguishment of fires and for domestic and other purposes. Domestic use in legal terms is commonly defined as water for drinking, bathing, sanitary purposes, cooking, laundering, irrigation of not over 1/2 acre of lawn or garden, and other incidental household uses. The commissioners should not lightly develop regulations that restrict water usage to a greater extent than the enabling legislation from the Massachusetts General Court. Punitive-only regulations should be discouraged. Commissioners should develop rules and regulations that reward users for purchase and use of water conservation equipment. New irrigation systems should have a minimum set of water conservation equipment before the system is allowed to connect to the district's water system. A poorly maintained irrigation system wastes water, and I support efforts to ensure proper maintenance. Periodic inspection of an irrigation system should be considered by the district to discourage the disabling of water-saving equipment and to assure efficient operation of the system. Hiring of a consultant should be considered to implement this inspection process with a reasonable fee charged to irrigation system users to help defray the inspection cost. The district may want to consider financially supporting this effort due to water conservation potentials. The commissioners must recognize that irrigation systems come in various sizes. Lumping all systems together is a disservice to the inhabitants of the district that have invested a substantial amount of their assets in these systems. The regulation should place rules on smaller systems than on larger systems, and it is not economically feasible to ask the inhabitants with smaller systems to install a well to service the irrigation system. In drafting new regulations, the commissioners need to own the responsibility of receiving input from both advocates and critics of automatic in-ground irrigation systems. It is not good enough for the commissioners to ask for input, hold public meetings, and then draft a regulation. The commissioners must ensure adequate representation and participations from all sides of this issue. The commissioners and superintendent must take an active role in dealing with high-use water customers and not leave this task to water department staff. It may be necessary, with advice from district council, to set deadlines on high-use customers and force disconnection of equipment from the water system before next spring. There must be an active, ongoing effort to develop new water sources within the district. Thank you, commissioners, for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Can you submit that in writing so we have a copy of it in our files?
I would be happy to send it either to Jen or Chris, whichever you designate.
Why don't you email it to Jen if you can, and she can distribute it to the rest of us.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it obviously represents a lot of thought on your part. Do you have a particular background in irrigation, or just as a user maybe?
I've been a user for over 20 years of irrigation systems.
Okay, good. So, and I think that what's happened is that some people may have had the wrong impression that we have imposed a regulation. We haven't done anything yet. The only thing we did is we've declared a moratorium for 90 days, which is probably about to expire, in order for us to study this issue. And so we're just beginning to study it. We've had a proposal. We're looking at it from many different ways. We've we've talked to people in the Mashpee Water District that have a similar regulation. But I would like you to be involved in helping us craft whatever we do come up with, if anything. And the idea of the moratorium was to, frankly, in my point of view, was to get people's attention. And I think we got yours, so that's good. And I really think that this is a process that may take a little time to figure out what is fair. We do want to encourage water conservation. Some of it might be related to pricing. Some of it might be related to uses. But I think that's all I would say right now. But when we get in later in the discussion, I would ask you if you had some comments after we've had a chance to discuss it today. And we will not be making any decisions tonight. So I just wanted to assure you of that. Okay. So I'd ask any of the commissioners to respond if they would like to. Otherwise, we'll go on to the superintendent's report.
Well, Commissioner Chairman Robinson, I will just respond by saying I had a very good conversation with Mr. Anderson, and I think he has a lot of very good points and input that we should certainly consider. Specifically, he has a suggestion that we consider some sort of a program for inspection, and I don't know whether Mr. Anderson was sort of an approval or certification of systems to make sure that they are maintained, because as you may recall, when I spoke to some of the irrigation experts a few weeks back, one of the things that I learned is that there's a fair number of these systems that are installed that are not maintained, and the so-called smart water features sort of become meaningless if they're not maintained and updated. So, and frankly, I don't know how we stay on top of that. Mr. Anderson has, I think, an intriguing idea, some sort of an inspection and sign off and certification program. So perhaps that's something we should consider. I will also note that I think I'm aware from a number of sources as well as observation that there are some systems, new systems going in despite our moratorium. So that's another thing perhaps we can talk about when we get to the agenda item tonight. But I do appreciate Mr. Anderson's input, and I hope he does work with us because I think he has a lot to offer.
Thank you.
I would just echo that thanks, Roger, for sharing that with us, because it's very well thought out, and I think you've done a nice job of articulating what your concerns are. And I would also add that Chairman Robinson has done an outstanding job this year trying to get people engaged and involved with the Water Commission and doing outreach and getting people to come to meetings, to join us and to share their thoughts. And you're one of the success stories of his chairmanship, I think. And there are many, I'm sure. But thank you for your thoughts.
Thanks, Tom. We would like to proceed now with the superintendent's report. Chris.
All right. I'm going to kind of give you a report here. When I, excuse me, I grabbed the agenda that I had earlier instead of the report. There we go. I'm going to give you the 2 months worth of pumpage here because we didn't have a meeting last month. So this is the superintendent's report read on July 15th, 2020. In May of 2019, we pumped 16,986,000 gallons of water. In May of 2020, we pumped 16,441,000 gallons of water for a decrease of 545,000 gallons. So we look good there. In June of 2019, we pumped 25,807,000. In June of 2020, we have pumped 36,291,000 for an increase of 10,573,000 from last year. It was a super dry June. According, Jen and I looked back this afternoon, there was a 1/4 inch of rain the year before, and maybe about 3 inches just about this year, which isn't a huge increase, but
Other way
between
around.
that and doing a little bit of flushing, we've got quite an increase there. And we know that they're not wrong for sure, but because we had them calibrated and rechecked actually in the beginning of the year, but that looks to be a little concerning if we don't get some rain pretty soon. We are pumping quite a bit of water every morning. I can get down to my general discussions here. In May, we had no new services put in. In June, we also had no new services put in. In May, we had 0 replacement services. In June, we had 3. We also in June had 2 leaks and 2 hydrant replacements done. So we had quite a bit of work going on during the last month of the year here. Give you a little bit of the security update. Not much has been done actually since our last meeting with it. A few tweaks here and there. I do have a conference call tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock with the head programmer to, I guess his final words with me into it. Well, we'll do what we have to make you guys happy. So we'll try to sum this up tomorrow morning. It's just to see exactly what we're missing, I guess we should say. Tom had mentioned earlier about the tank cleaning that's going on over on West Street. And we had a little discussion with the company that's doing it. They sent the guys down. The wire, the basket that is there wasn't kind of how it was discovered to me. I thought it was one that was going to be attached to the tank. They can only get up to the equator with the wire that they have out there now. So it's still, I called the guy up and said, you're still not going to be able to clean above the equator with that. It's still going to look horrible. The actual guys that are doing the work agreed with me, said, you're right. And they were there 2 days ago. And when I left, the guy was on the phone arguing with him to get another lift down there because it wasn't going to be done right. So we're still in discussions. We're still working on it. Some of the stuff isn't going to come off, he said. It's permanent that's on there. It's staining. He said it's just not coming off. It's just too deep into the paint. But the stuff that's on the back side of it, where it looks like circles have been cleaned, should be coming off. And he wants to get another lift there and bring it to the back of the tank and re-clean the back. So I'm hoping that they will finally do it. If not, I'll demand it. That's all. Or I'll tell them they're not getting paid. So we'll go from there. I don't know if you guys have heard about our cell tower. The lease has been sold or is in the midst of being sold from Tower North, who built it, to a new company, SWI Fund Tower Holding. We've already called our lease lawyer. He's gone through it. He's kind of negotiated his payments to be paid by Tower North, I believe it is, or maybe this company. And we have had a few things signed already. We're just waiting on some final closure work. They're going to put some boulders between the gates there and their gate so that people can't drive around it. And to our satisfaction. And then once that's done, we can turn the estoppel that's been signed by Fran already over to them. I guess Mark Boudreau also gave permission on it, signed off on it. So it's the same lease agreement. It's just going to another company. And they've been run through supposedly just as reputable, according to everything that was done, Rick and, our lawyer and the previous tenants.
They're actually more financially solvent than the company that we're currently leasing with.
Great. Just letting you guys know also that the America Water Infrastructure Act was signed back on October 23rd, which gives us to June of 2021 to do a risk and resilience assessment on our water department. Has to be done by a engineering firm. They come in, take all the information and everything else. I got a little bit of information. I got a couple different prices on it. And I did sign an agreement with Tater and Howard, the last people we dealt with, because they also did our ERP, our emergency response plan. So a lot of it's already in there. So we can get that updated afterwards for a small fee that has all this. So I chose to go with them. I have signed an agreement at the last of the month. We found out towards the end of the year that we were turning back quite a bit of money. So rather than take it out of this year's budget, I signed an agreement with them back on, I think it was the 19th. So I'll give you a little more about that if you need to see it, what's going to be done and everything else. We can discuss it later on. Last thing I have on here with all the COVID situation going around, basically since the beginning, since we've been working, I've been driving my personal vehicle around so that everybody has their own vehicle. We don't have any more than one person in a truck at a time. We have rules about going into houses and, you know, making sure all PPE is on and everything. So it's getting to the point where I thought I was just going to be doing it for a few months. And it doesn't look like that's going to be the case right now with everything and the way it's going. I'm getting a little concerned. My truck broke down the other day and that I wasn't going to be able to go to work for a little while. But it's working now and everything. I have looked into a couple different things. Just to let you know, I did put in some fuel 3 different times. 15 gallons one day. A few weeks later, I put another 15 gallons in. And one day I took $25 cash and went down and dropped $25 worth down the on the gas stations that was going on. Or I actually stopped and did it myself and turned in the slip. So I've kind of started since the 29th of saving mileage of every morning and afternoon when I get home. I write it down in a book. I haven't submitted that for reimbursement, but I'd like to at some point. I just kind of want to get your permission on that, basically, to do. The other is because I'm not using my vehicle. I mean, because I am using my vehicle, it's kind of a stress. My wife doesn't have anything to drive at home usually or anything. So I kind of looked into the same company that gives us our credit specs, CVEC, Cape and Island Vineyard, I think it is, Cape Cod Electrical. Anyways, they have a 3-year option on a hybrid lease that's out there with a government payback of so much money. And I've looked at a couple different vehicles. I'm looking at an all-wheel drive. I've talked to a guy a couple times. And right now, they just went out and got a quote just to see if it was possible. It would be about $16,000 for a lease for 3 years on a Subaru Crosstrek hybrid with a $300 cash back incentive. So it would end up being about $1,300 after the government state sent back the $3,000. It's for a 3-year lease, and I don't know about insurance and stuff like that. I'd have to talk to Ray or the insurance guy if it would be any extra. But I'd like to start looking into that a little more and seeing what your opinions are on that, at least, and everything. Other than that, that's my report.
Any comments from the commissioners, Scott?
Yeah, Chris, thanks for that report. As usual, great update and comprehensive. I got a couple things I wanted to get back on, but let's start with the vehicle. I was going to suggest why don't we start reimbursing you, including back time at the government rate for the use of your vehicle rather than just paying the gas. I think that would be fair. But you did mention that perhaps the vehicle is shared with your wife, and maybe that's not a viable alternative. I agree with you. None of us know how long this is going to last, and I think we should put something in place to enable you to get to work comfortably. So I just wanted to check back with the government mileage rate, which would be something we could obviously stop if, in fact, we're able to solve this COVID thing. That'll be easy to sort of start and stop rather than sort of a 3-year lease. But can you just clarify, or maybe your situation in terms of how viable that would be given your family situation and vehicles? And otherwise, I think we should look at, as you suggested, the lease arrangement.
Yeah, I believe I've only been keeping track of mileage, like I said, since the 29th. I kind of, like I said, thought it was going to be just a couple months. So I said, I'll just drive it, drop a little gas in every once in a while. Since then, I've been keeping mileage daily. And that was something I considered, turning it in. But I did get nervous last week when I was on vacation. It did break down, like I said, and I had to get it repaired. And it was just one of them things where I said to myself, geez, if that's the case, what do I tell one of the guys? They have to drive their own vehicle? And then I got to thinking, what is insurance here? Should I find out what's the insurance liability behind this? What's going to happen if I get in an accident going to a house to do something or anything like that? So I definitely think it's something we ought to look into a little more and see what the liability is on it, using your own vehicle and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Chris, can you just remind us how many trucks there are now for how many staff?
Yes, we have 4 employees, myself, the assistant, and 2 laborers, or water operators. And right now we have 3 vehicles. Used to be the water operators went around together. The assistant superintendent had his vehicle and I had mine. What I've done is I've given the assistants to one of the other operators so that they can both go to a job in their own truck. And if they have to work together, they can at least drive there together and keep their distance in while they're at the house. I've given my truck to the assistant and he's using that truck. So there's only the 3 trucks and 4 guys, basically.
Yeah, I just wanted to put that on the record.
Yeah.
It just seems to me a 3-year lease is a little long for a temporary situation like this. Are there other leases that are month to month?
Although, Mr. Chairman, if I might jump in here, if some of the other leases on the other trucks are going to be retired before that 3-year lease, perhaps this could become the substitute. So Chris, do you know what the
I think we own those trucks. We own those trucks.
Yeah, we do own those trucks.
Okay. Well, we could, I guess what I'm thinking is we could sell one of those trucks, go back down to 3 if we want to. That'll be an option. I don't know if there were less than 3-year leases or not.
I could check on that and find out with the guys. I was just looking at the government, incentive program that they had and everything, and thinking, at this point I was getting, with the car that they were talking about, it's an all-wheel drive still, so I could still get down to the stations if I had to. It got 33 miles to the gallon for gas, and when it was on electric, I think it was 17 miles electric, something like that on it.
Yeah,
So I was just trying to be conservative at the same time.
Yeah, I would echo what's been said. You need to try to obtain a leased vehicle or some sort of vehicle other than your own. And until you can, I think you should be getting whatever the government rate is for reimbursement for mileage. And it's like 54, 55 cents a mile or something to that effect. That's easy to track down on the internet.
Yeah.
From my school department, because they give that to us as well.
And that's not a problem. We've always paid that when the guys have gone to classes and had to take their own vehicles. We've always reimbursed them for that. I just was, like I said in the beginning, I was trying to be more of a nice guy, I guess I want to say.
Oh, it shows good leadership, Chris, that you took the bullet for the team, use your own car. But I think that if you could just bring us a few more alternatives than a 3-year lease, I think would help me.
All right, I'll look into that, and I'll either start emailing around people and stuff like that. Because like I said before, I know that what's there and everything else, but just that was one of the few benefits that I used there. I don't use the health insurance there, or anything like that. So that was really the only benefit besides my job itself that was there that I was using.
Both the GSA website and the IRS website have the mileage reimbursement at 57.5 cents right now per mile.
Perfect.
Scott?
Yeah, I would just suggest, since the next meeting is going to be at least a month away, that we somehow authorize Chris to move ahead, perhaps with the chair's approval, if we can get a more reasonable lease, just so we can make a move on this, unless you both feel we can wait another month to get his estimates on a one-year lease. Seems like this is something that he feels like he'd like to not continue using his personal vehicle, and I'd like to not think he'd have to do that for another month. I think the idea of getting a shorter lease is a good idea. I don't know what that is, what the opportunities are, but it seems like we ought to be able to resolve that within the next 30 days. So I don't know if we can, in the form of a motion, to try to get approval to do this, subject to some sort of sign off before now in the next meeting.
The only thing that I worry about that is the amount of money that would be spent and it being unappropriated right now. I don't know if I would have to go through the Prudential Committee or legal just to find out if it's something that would have to go to a special meeting or something that we'd have to go to the voters for. That would be my only concern on something like that. Or
Well, Chris, are you comfortable waiting till the next meeting then with this?
I can keep on going. Yeah. If it gets any worse, I'm going to go out and buy a new truck. So we'll have to see.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a COVID related expense, and there are funds available, and I don't know, how accessible they are, but I would recommend that you take a look at if there's any grant money that could, defer some of the costs. But again, I prefer you didn't use your own vehicle, and that for, like you mentioned, insurance reasons as well, that you use something that the department provide for you.
Yeah, so I think you've got some consensus here, Chris, to move forward with maybe 2 alternative proposals for us to approve. And then I think also to figure out, is there any part of our existing budget that covers something like that? Or as Tom says, can you get a grant from the federal government, COVID related? I think it's certainly relevant.
I'll start investigating. Yeah, I can start investigating on that stuff, and I'll get back to you guys as soon as I can.
And meanwhile, keep good track of your mileage, certainly.
Okay.
And,
you'll start seeing it in the weekly warrants. I might do it every week just so we keep it continuing, and it also will help with COVID expenses that Katuah can get reimbursed with. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I had Ray ask that question about fuel prices and everything.
Good.
If you need the commissioners to sign a statement saying that we authorized it as a COVID-related expense, we're happy to do that, I think.
Okay, great.
Are there other comments on the superintendent's report? Scott?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to your pumpage figures, which are pretty interesting. June last year, 25.8 million. June this year, 36.3. That's almost a 10 million increase, which as you noted. This may be a good segue to the next agenda item. Do you have a sense of what caused that increase of 10 million? You mentioned less rain. How does less rain result in 10 million gallons of water
that would be
consumed? Yeah,
that would be on your conservation. If the some irrigation systems have the conservation rain sensors. Some people don't water as much if it's raining out. We also have had, because of COVID, people here all of June. People were in the house using water that they haven't used before, in ages. A lot of people moved here kind of quick and before everything was done as soon as they could, and they stayed around. So and a lot of people doing projects too this time of year. So I'm not thinking it's, a lot of times our increases directly are weather related, whether it's hot, real hot, or if it's a mild summer.
Chris?
Would you guess most of that is irrigation related?
And pool filling.
Yeah, exactly. Pool fillings, anything like that. It could be any of those things. Yes. I tend to think that irrigations get, with the drier time coming up a little more. The more people, as Mr. Anderson said, putting the hose out and turning it on that don't usually do that. Letting it go every day, keep it in the same spot. If you drive around Katuitt now, you could see some permanent stuff. I saw one on the top of a step ladder today someplace where someone wanted to get up high that's hooked right up on top of a step ladder. So, I mean, there's stuff out there that you see that I think it's directly related to watering lawns, yes. I don't know if it's irrigation by automatic or just hand hose or what, but I think a lot more people put in gardens this year that haven't in the past. You know, there's a lot of stuff out there that I think are turning it, making it one big factor.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's a 40% increase. Have
Yeah,
we
that's-
seen increases like that?
That's 10.5 million gallons more. I have seen them in the past. We have had them quite high. I'm not, I really
2012.
would have to go back and look. What's that?
2012, it was a really, really dry summer and we had
Yeah.
huge increases that year.
I'd have to go back and look. I don't know if it was quite that high, but I know that we were averaging 5 to 6 million more every month. And I almost had to go back. I don't know if Mark was there then, but I almost got asked to have my testing company come in and retest the wells to make sure they were putting out an accurate amount.
Okay. Thank you.
Chris, on the West Street tank cleaning, I feel your pain. I mean, it's a tricky job, I'm sure, for anybody. But you know, I had one person, a resident, say, "Oh, I'm glad you guys are finally getting around to cleaning that." He says, "Are they ever going to finish it?" So we get praise and criticism at the same time.
Yeah, it's been quite a thing. And I don't know if when the guy had the lift there, when it started to tip over, if he freaked out and didn't want to do anymore or what, but they got a new guy there now and he keeps telling him, just get it here and I'll finish it. So if he had only realized that it was there for 2.5 weeks after they finished, supposedly, they could have sent someone else down if they had him. It just sat there for 2.5 weeks out front. They had the key for it. They could have used it again anytime, but they came probably 3 weeks after they pulled it out of there.
When is that tank due for paint, do you think, Chris?
It's only 5 years old. I would think with that, the way it is, probably not for another 10 years,
Wow.
but I can't be positive.
Okay.
So as long as you're convinced that it's an aesthetic thing and not a structural thing to have that pitting.
Yeah, it's mold and mildew is what it is. I mean, if you look at it, you can see the green staining also that's there. One thing I didn't know until the guys told me the other day is that it is absolutely right now disgusting on top of the tank because the ospreys are using the railing to eat all their fish.
I've
So
seen them
there's
up there.
actual blood and guts, they said, on it up there that they had to clean off. And they said, I don't know if that's part of your staining.
Oh, nice try.
Yeah, exactly.
I have seen them up there though. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
Oh, okay. All right, well, just stay on top of them with that. You're doing it, you know. See what we get, right?
Yep, I will.
I would ask if there's any quick public comment on the superintendent's report. Okay, what's the next agenda item, Chris?
Irrigation
We have
policy.
Old business.
Whole business.
Irrigation policy review. Commissioner Horsley, please.
Yeah, I'd ask Scott to give us a little update as to what he's been researching in the past couple months.
Well, I think it's pretty much the same situation other than my conversation with Mr. Anderson, which he already summarized, and I certainly invite him to participate in this conversation at this point in the agenda as well. As you noted, Mr. Chairman, we are well into the moratorium. Perhaps it's, and I honestly don't recall the date that started, so maybe the first thing we should do is check that date because perhaps one action we could take tonight is to extend that if necessary. But I remain of the opinion that we should do something here. There are systems going in. My question to Chris was partly rhetorical, because I do believe that the vast majority of that increase is irrigation related, and I remain concerned about the impacts of this. And I think we need to do something. I do think we should go through a thoughtful process, as Mr. Anderson is suggesting. His suggestion of inspections is a good one. I wonder if, I guess one question I have, maybe Jen or others could respond, would be, do we have any sense at this point with the water rate increases, whether or not that has reduced demand? I guess, again, looking at June's pumpage, perhaps the answer is obvious, but the tools that we have available, I guess, are regulatory, public education, and economic incentives, I think. I'm wondering, I guess, so the first one is we do already have a water rate change in place, and I'm wondering if maybe we'll start there, and I'll just open it up and see if anybody feels like the water rate change last year has been effective at reducing water pumpage and irrigation.
So I can chime in just from this last reading. First, I'll start with the moratorium was put in place at the May 20th commissioners meeting. So that would be an August 20th expiration. In doing the readings, so we completed all of the readings for this, the 6-month period of January to June on July 1st. We were done reading by the end of the day. And I go through pretty much every record and compare it to the prior period usage, which everything was all over the map because things were so different in this 6-month period. You had, like Chris said, you had people home full time, not using water at work or showers at the gym and things like that. So in some cases, water consumption was up. In other cases, it was down because they were seasonal residents who weren't here. The houses had just been turned on. So it wasn't easy to do a comparison to know whether things were up or down. I will say some of the people that I contacted, because their usage was up a lot, did say that because they were home, they seeded, they had sod, they irrigated the heck out of it. And we have 7 houses that we monitor on a monthly basis because they had raised issues of high usage in the past, raised concern about high usage. One of them turned on their irrigation June 11th. And when we read on the 1st, they had used 35,000 gallons of water just in that 3-week period. So I think it's a lot of everything. I do think irrigation has been used a lot in June.
Yeah, so you know, I'm thinking that if we want to extend the moratorium and let the water rate change play through the summer and see what effect it has, although I think given our situation with COVID, we've got multiple changes in place. It's going to be hard to evaluate. But again, my position is I think we need to do something, and I have drafted a regulation. I looked at it again. I still think it's a reasonable approach. I think I'm fully supportive of making it very transparent in public hearings, et cetera, et cetera. And if there's anybody has any ideas on how to best do that, I'm all ears. I did speak to the Mashpee water superintendent, as I did report to you before, and his suggestion was that we do some good outreach. And that's something that I'd be happy to work. I know Jen's already started to put together a contact list, and I'm happy to work with her on trying to effectuate that outreach program, which I think is a good idea. And perhaps that could be part of an extended moratorium to try to enlist more input. Mr. Anderson's, frankly, I think the only one who's responded so far, which is, again, we applaud your interest, Mr. Anderson. But if we could outreach, maybe one suggestion is we get a notification out to that contact list that Jen's put together and suggest that we're perhaps extending the moratorium, but for the purpose of examining some other actions to try to mitigate some of these irrigation demand, ultimately one alternative being this regulation that we have pending. So I guess that would be my suggestion at this point. And again, I'm happy to hear suggestions and ideas.
Scott, I think one thing that would be useful is to have a workshop. And I think if we could get somebody from the Mashpee Water District, whether it's a commissioner, Tom Fadal is a commissioner, or the superintendent, and one of the installers that you've talked to, a well driller, people who are in this particular sphere that I'm not knowledgeable about. And we could have that as a workshop, invite the public. If we think it's feasible to do it in person at Freedom Hall, we would do that. Otherwise, we do it in this format. But I mean, I have questions that I would love to just hear. What is the real world experience? And I'm not in favor of adopting regulations that can't be enforced. So I want to make sure that we have a good way to make sure it can be implemented. And if it's having the users pay to support the cost of a consultant to analyze and monitor the systems, or at least subsidize that cost, I think that's a great idea I've heard tonight from Mr. Anderson. So I think I heard that. So I think a workshop, I mean, people will come if they're invited specifically to learn information, as opposed to just responding to a one-line regulation. So I think that then that would give us a chance to bounce ideas off of people with some of that experience. There's got to be other districts that have these kind of policies. Could we ask Chris? I'm sorry?
Go ahead. I was going
Could
to
we
say
ask
there
Chris?
Yep,
Well, maybe Chris could put out an email blast to his peers around Cape and ask if they have adopted similar policies. Maybe, are you still doing regional meetings, Chris? With
We are not right now, but I have a list of different places in Massachusetts that have this. I put it out. I actually talked to the woman from Mass Waterworks Association, and she gave me the name of a few places. And did I forward that to you, Scott?
I don't recall that, Chris. I'll look back though. This is Jen Peterson.
Yeah, that's who she sent it to me, and I'll go back and look in my a couple folders I have and see if I have those water companies that have done it, water departments.
Okay.
Around Massachusetts, at least. Just on what you were saying earlier, just to for one thing, reiterate what I said last time. This inspection that you talk about, we really have no right to, I guess, enter upon a property unless written in our bylaws, unless we're inspecting a water meter right now. That would have to take some kind of bylaw change. We are not, a policing authority, really. It would I don't know how that would happen, and that would make me nervous about sending my guys into people's yards, especially long driveways and stuff like that.
Maybe I'll ask Mr. Anderson here, because I think, Mr. Anderson, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you were suggesting that a third party might do those inspections and certifications. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I had problems taking myself off of mute. My understanding, and Chris, I'm not talking authoritatively here,
okay.
But if people take water from the system, I believe the district has a right to go into their house. Now, I am not a lawyer. I am not talking authoritatively here, but you could introduce a bylaw allowing the inspection of an irrigation system. That is totally not unheard of. Whether this inspection could be pulled off or not, I'm not 100% sure. It's just an idea that I think deserves exploration. And I know it would allay some fears that have been expressed, and I concur with, that people can disable stuff in systems, or they just don't know, or they haven't touched their systems in 20 years. Those are the things that I'm trying to address with that suggestion.
Heard, that's for sure. Thank you.
What do you think about the idea of a workshop?
I love the idea of a workshop. I think it'd be great. I think we need to do that outreach piece. I think, and I've heard from several members of the community expressing their concerns about the moratorium and expressing their concerns because they were thinking of installing irrigation systems and they didn't want to go against anything that was in place by the commission and violate the moratorium. And so it is something that the public's concerned about. So if we could get together at either Freedom Hall or like we did at the district meeting in the parking lot at Lowell Field, I mean, wherever, and just and get people together that have like minds and thoughts with respect to how do we use water efficiently for all of our needs, all of our domestic needs, which include, as Mr. Anderson said, you know, small, what was it, half-acre lawn watering. So I love that idea, and I think in order to do that, it makes sense, as Commissioner Horsley said, that we extend the moratorium and then go ahead and schedule a workshop.
Ask Chris and Jen if, I think you mentioned that the fire commission was meeting in person now. Are we starting to see loosening of public meetings like that?
Well, honestly, I think it'll be based on attendance if you plan to have it inside at Freedom Hall. I don't think you can have more than 25 people.
Correct. I believe that stage 3 is groups of 25 or more are not allowed, right?
Well, we'd love to have 25 people come. I don't think we want to make it RSVP. It's a public meeting. We could ask people just to sign up showing their interest maybe, but we don't want to knock anybody out that shows up at the last minute either. So
That could help us decide whether we could have it indoors or outdoors, though.
Yeah.
So I guess the basic question was, would this be in the summer when more people are here, but they're busy, or would it be in September? Scott, what do you think?
I mean, it seems like the people that are interested in irrigation are here in the summer.
Right.
So yeah, if we want to try to get their input, maybe, I don't know, is there something we could attach to the August meeting, make an agenda item? I have a really hard time estimating how many people we'll get. I mean, I really don't know.
Yeah.
But
well,
maybe,
I think we'd put it out there and ask them to just give their name to Jen so she has an idea of a head count. But that, 26 people show up.
How would we, what's the suggestion on how we put it out there in terms of asking people if they're interested? Is that I had mentioned before, maybe trying to go through the Civic Association newsletter or something, which strikes me as one of the more broadly read community publications. I'm just not familiar with, other than that, how do we get the word out?
Well, I mean, I would do a postcard to the ratepayers. How much would that cost, Jen?
I'm not sure, but I could get a price on an every door direct mail.
It's Carol Zace. Can I talk for a second about community outreach?
Sure, thank you.
The Civic Association is doing a meeting next Tuesday as one of our community meetings, but we're holding it by Zoom like we did our candidates and budget night. So if you decide to do something at Freedom Hall, yes, 25 people are allowed, but I don't think 25 people fit at Freedom Hall 6 feet apart. And although I did go to part of the fire commissioners meeting last night, I don't know how many people can fit in there if you have to also maintain that social distancing. But we would be happy to, announce in the Currents, announce in our email list, along with whatever else you're doing, to get the word out. But
Could
I
the-
can, as of next week, I can certainly tell you how many people are coming to or call in on Zoom, which is we're having Jessica Rapp present kind of like what's going on in the village, what's going on in the town, what are the updates. So if you want her to talk about the moratorium, or talk as, you know, I can certainly see if you want to present something like you are going to be doing a workshop in the future, as another way of getting the word out.
Thank you. What about the gymnasium at the school? I mean, we'd have to ask the town, but I know they're still doing bagpipe practice over there every Wednesday, so it's obviously being used. Any ideas on that?
I believe that Fran looked into that for the annual district meeting, and because of the accessibility issues with it, not being handicap accessible, and the water is off there right now, that it wasn't a viable option for the annual district meeting. I don't know if that makes it any different for us.
Strikes.
And the bathrooms weren't there. The other place you could look into would be Katuitt Center for the Arts. At the time we asked them for candidates in budget night, that we were at a limit of 10 people. So they were at a limit of 10 people. So their auditorium would probably be potential.
Carol, thank you for your input there. It strikes me that we should do this in the summer, and given where we're at with COVID, things seem to be going more backwards than forward from my read and listening to the news. So I guess and given the limitations on all the facilities that we've just reviewed, strikes me we should probably plan this as a Zoom meeting. But I wanted to throw that out there and see. You mentioned, Carol, I think you mentioned that the Civic Association meeting is going to be via Zoom coming up on Tuesday night. And I guess if that's true, I'd ask my fellow commissioners and water department staff if we feel that a Zoom session might be an effective way to do this workshop, because it may be our only really option to get it done this summer.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I just, we want to make sure that our presenters have good audio. It's very frustrating when you're trying to educate people and it's not seamless. But I guess everybody gives us a little pass. We're doing the best we can. Well, let's I think it could be part of our next regular meeting. We wouldn't have to do a lot of other business at that time. We could put some other things off and just make it more related to this issue. How would that be?
Yeah, I mean, maybe one suggestion, I like Carol's idea. I could certainly contact Jessica and see if she'd be willing to announce this on Tuesday night and advertise the fact that we're going to have an agenda item in August. Maybe it's a workshop within our meeting. And I'm not sure what else is on the agenda, but if we do get good attendance and a lot of discussion, maybe we could make that kind of the primary activity.
Scott, you could definitely call Jim Danhauser or email him and ask him to make an announcement before he announces Jessica, because it is a civic association meeting that we are hosting, and she is our main speaker.
Okay.
I don't know if we've set the schedule for September, excuse me, for August and September. So those, you could also put in your email to him asking if there was an opportunity for you guys to take one of those slots. And Jim does a great job of hosting the Zoom meeting.
Right. Okay, thank you, Carol.
Yep.
Scott, if you could recruit 3 presenters that you think are knowledgeable and experienced in this subject, that as we discussed before. I think somebody from Mashpee would be good.
Yeah, Chris, you and I spoke. After I spoke with the water superintendent in Mashpee, I think he was going to talk with you about possibly participating. Have you guys talked since?
Yeah, I'll talk to him. I didn't get a chance to talk to him before this meeting because I think we were going to ask him to talk, and then we weren't sure when the meeting, we changed it and everything else. So I never really got a chance to talk to Andy, but I'll give him a call and see if he's available at the meeting.
Yeah, when I
He could
spoke
just
to
talk
him
about his experience
He
While we're
expects-
kind of talking about that, I just wanted to mention that I have gotten a few phone calls on this also, with the sprinkler people calling up saying, hey, I talked to my sprinkler guy and he told me that he can't put it in Katuitt. So the word has got out there that to the sprinkler companies, and they're following it right now and saying, I can't do it. So there are guys out there that are doing it, are actually following the guidelines right now. You as we put out. I have got a few phone calls. I had one guy call me, is there any way around it? And I said, no, there isn't any way around it. So between them, and I did talk to the plumbing inspector in the town of Barnstable, informed him.
Okay, great, thank you. When I did speak with Andy, his preference was to go through you in terms of an invite. So maybe you and I can coordinate on that, but I think he would like you to be the, if you don't mind, be the contact to invite him to be one of the speakers. I think he'd be a good one. And I can certainly reach back to some of the irrigation people I've already spoken to as another possible speaker, and perhaps I'd nominate myself to be the third speaker, but I'll give that some further thought. And then maybe the other suggestion I guess I'd have would be I could work with you, Jen, to get a email out to your contact list, and we could advertise the workshop through that means as well. I guess the last question, just for clarification, are we in agreement that are we thinking that the workshop should be part of the next commissioners meeting?
Yeah, I like that idea, and I would make a motion that we extend the moratorium for 60 days as well.
I was going to suggest 60 days. I think that's perfect. So
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to extend the moratorium on new irrigation systems being installed for 60 days from August 20th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. And thank you. I think that's a good start to the discussion here. And more information is better. I think every good idea can be supported with good evidence. So let's try to do that. What's next on your agenda there, Chris?
14 Main Street restoration. That'd be for you to talk about.
Oh, well, let's defer that. I know. Thank you for taking down the hillbilly sign, and thank you for telling me that there are going to be more rocks put up.
Yeah, I can give you a real quick on that if you want.
Sure.
We have had the electricity removed there. We have had Verizon come in and take everything off of our poles. Have had the hay bales removed out of there. We have the rocks coming. The only problem that I have right now is that I asked Verizon to take the other pole down and everything, and they said there's way too much equipment on there for them to do it without whoever putting it in calling them. I believe it's T-Mobile, and I have to notify somebody from them that will give them the permission to take it out of there. I don't know if there's anything live still going in, so that's the only reason I talked to somebody about prices, but I haven't gone down there and brought anybody to get prices because I want them to be accurate and ready to go when it does have time to take everything, the fencing down, and bring some of the concrete down, remove the poles and everything else.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Is there a motion to buy Chris a new headset?
That is a new one.
How's that? Better?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Do a truck first.
It's going to be your connection. It cuts in and out.
Yeah.
What's next?
Policy advisory.
Nothing to report. It's been no meetings, no movement on the annual plans. So we're on standby probably until the next time that the policy advisory committee convenes a meeting.
All right. Then there's a lien list on here. Jen?
So the lien list that we talked about back in May, the accounts that have a balance due more than 365 days, just pulling out my copy, which is also in the attachment that I had sent you with the meeting invite. We're down to 18 accounts out of more than, I think we were at 39 when we started. So we've cut it in more than half. Total outstanding balance, $2,962.06. I got a call from somebody as I was heading out the door today who's bringing me a check tomorrow. So my next step from here is the certified letters. Those will go out now that we've met tonight and reviewed the list. Those will go out in the next couple of days. I won't say tomorrow, but in the next couple of days. And then they'll have a due date of the August meeting. And at that point, we would vote on them to send the list to the town so that they have it for the October tax bills. But it's good. It's good that it's
Yep.
it's less than $3,000.
I see there's a couple of users that are quite high, particularly one on Prudence Lane at $728.
Yeah, so there's a combination of things with that property. One being that they are in bankruptcy as well, and we do get periodic $20 payments on that account. So part of the balance has been paid down, but they continue to accrue, and part of that is will be paid for by the bankruptcy payoff, but they continue to accrue, water usage and water usage bills and are not paying anything to us in addition to what has been settled through the bankruptcy. But yes, that one account is the majority of the list.
It is, and it kind of brings back a similar situation we had where we had somebody that hadn't paid their bill for years, right? And they have now started to pay their bill, is that correct?
They have, yeah. We actually got in touch with them only because they were home during this whole COVID thing, actually home recovering from open heart surgery. We've changed their meter, they've paid their bill, and they are current. So that's all good. But there are some, as you guys know, you've seen this list for several years now, there are some frequent flyers on here that just don't pay. The other one, the guy that's coming in tomorrow, is the one that's the $201 payment. So that will be coming off tomorrow. Yeah, one of the larger ones.
These are significantly more than the 1 year tardy. Is that correct?
Well, every year we lien anything that's more than 365 days. So they're not more than 365 days after the lien list is processed.
Great, thank you.
There's no action to take tonight. We'll vote on that next month.
Correct. That was just a review of the last 18. Those are the ones that will get the certified mail. So where that postage cost is a little more than our previous contact attempts.
Thank you. Next, Chris.
We start to go to new business here. We only had, let's see if I have this here. Hold on. We only had one bid come in to for our annual service connections. And Bortolotti Construction was the only one that bid on it this year. We had a couple other interested parties. We took out some stuff. They just never brought in their bid packages. So I'd like to have you guys, I guess this has to be signed, it's supposed to be signed by the Board of Water, the chairman of the Board of Water Commission as an acceptance of it. Their total bill bid, it's an estimated bid, came in at $101,934.20. They went up a little bit in some pavement charges and stuff like that, but basically their hourly fee is the same as it was this year. They did go up in a little bit in other stuff, but I have no other to look at. So I kind of, at this point, if I don't sign this, I don't have a contractor for the next year.
How does it compare with last year's?
It's higher. Their prices are higher than they were last year. Their mold shot went up a little bit, and their existing construction went up a little bit. So actually quite a bit on the mold shot, $10 a foot, but it's the only one I have. Like I said, there's an increase there on stuff, but I'd say it's a tough one. It's all I have. It's
But you're satisfied with their work still?
Yes. I am.
Also, the company that we've gone with since I've been on the board, so it's 4 years now that we've
Correct.
Bordelati, so they have a good record with us.
So do I need a motion to accept that contract?
Yes. Basically, if I could get the motion tonight, I can tell him that it's been awarded, and I can either have the chairman stop by and sign it, or sign it electronically if we send
I
it to
can
him.
sign it outside tomorrow.
Okay.
Is there a motion to accept the contract from Bordelati Construction?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. I'll come by tomorrow morning early, Jen, like between 8:30 or so.
I'll be there.
Next item.
There's a
What
revenue
about-
comparison.
Yeah, we can't share anything tonight on the screen, huh?
I can, hang on.
I'm so proud of this.
I think I can. Hang on.
So what I asked Jen to do was to, the budget that was approved at the annual district meeting a month ago really related to the expenses of the department, and that was approved overwhelmingly. But there really wasn't any discussion of revenues, and so I wanted just to make sure that for the record we were able to put into our record
Did I
the
do it?
impact that the rate increase has had. There you go.
Did it?
And so on the top, you can see FY19's revenues into the water department, the majority being water use, of course, and the cell and solar leases and the solar credits is really what that is. And then the 56% increase in the revenues in the past fiscal year, again, mostly based on the new rates. So the point of showing this is not to necessarily show that, yay, look at us, we raised a lot of more money. The point to me, the bottom line was that it helped make the district tax go down by approximately 7% this year. The water department's expenses is a much smaller percentage of the district expenses than the fire. But our revenues are obviously now a considerable input into the revenues of the district in addition to the tax. So I think what we've done through the pain of the water rate increase is what we'd hoped to have done, which is to reduce the tax. We can't make it a one-to-one comparison because there are other expenses of the district. But I think that the fact that there was a net decrease in the overall tax on the ratepayers as a result of the water rate increase can be measured, and I think we'll continue to see that over time. Are there any comments, Scott?
Yeah, I was not present when this change took place, as both of you other commissioners were. So this is really just a question. You mentioned that one of the goals of this was to get this off the tax base, which it sounds like has been effective. Was one of the other goals articulated water conservation to try to reduce perhaps unnecessary water use? Is that one of the stated goals of this?
It wasn't one of the stated goals. I think the fact that the graduated rate increase severely affects the extraordinary users of water obviously gets to that through a side effect.
Okay. And just to kind of reiterate, unless people have another opinion, I don't know that if that is maybe an unstated goal, I don't think we can conclude at this point that has happened. Is that correct, Chris or Jen or anybody? The water conservation part of this.
So water rates may affect consumption, which may affect conservation.
So actually, maybe that's a better way of stating it. Do we see any evidence yet that the water rate change has effectuated consumption reduction?
I believe we'd need at least a year's usage to compare to. I don't believe this, right now with this consumption, we're going to have to see if that goes down. This is actually the beginning point for us to see if there's any kind of decrease, I believe.
Okay.
The other thing is,
we should have.
go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to say we might be able to know more on that come the January readings, because at this point we'd be comparing apples and oranges, the 2 6-month reading periods, where this rate just went into effect July 1st of 19, and we just did our July 1st readings for 20. We're not looking at the same 6-month usage periods.
Because I'm just wondering if there's any way to get that information. It would be interesting, even though that wasn't the primary objective here, given our prior discussion on irrigation controls. I'm just personally wondering if water rates can be or should be a tool to consider in effectuating that. So I'm wondering, just since we are collecting this data, if there is any way to try to parse that out going forward. Jen, you're probably the best person to ask if you think there might be any way to do that going forward. And I really don't know if that's a possibility or not.
I think the main thing we could do is, after a 12-month period, look at the highest users, the highest 25 users in the district, and see if their consumption went down at all or stayed the same. To some of these people, it's just a rounding error.
Right.
Tripling of water rates is a rounding error. It's still a lot less than you're paying for electricity and all the
I
other
do
utilities.
think it helped with the leak detection piece of it, because when people got that first initial bill with the new rates, they were like, this can't be right, this can't be right. And when we talk about their usage, they'd say, oh, I didn't use that much. And that would help them determine whether there was, a leak someplace in their irrigation, in their property, or something undiscovered. So I do think it did help with that.
And just to go back to what you were asking, Scott, the rates are set in an ascending rate for conservation. The more you use, the higher it gets. That's why we have the different brackets. We did add a bracket when we put in this new for real high users. So it's meant to have people, hit them in the pocket.
Yeah,
I guess I want to say.
Understood.
Yeah.
Chris, Jen, I'd like you to send that graphic over to the Prudential Committee, just for information.
Okay. One other thing I was going to note during this discussion, Mark, in the packet, I also included the year-end financial stuff where we sit right now with our expenditures and our encumbrances for fiscal year 20. Because, as you know, one of the goals of the rate study was for the water department to be self-funding to cover our operating expenses, as well as our debt service and employee benefits. And those figures the treasurer would be able to provide, but in speaking to the operating and maintenance budget, we did overspend the overtime by $476, which we knew was going to happen. The treasurer has worked with the Prudential Committee, and they have approved an additional $500 transfer of funds to cover that. And then once we include our encumbrances for the year, we're actually turning in just shy of $40,000 from our operating budget. So that brings, our operating budget down to, instead of 690, down to 650. And as you can see by the revenues of 1.1 million, we have more than covered our operating budget with these costs.
Thank you. What's next on your agenda there, Chris?
Let's see. That would be elect a new chair on there.
Yeah, that's I was waiting for that. So we have a
Hey, Mark, I'm gonna have to go now.
we have a great tradition. You're not excused. We have a great tradition in the Katuitt Water Commission of bringing in the new guy who knows nothing to be the chair, and making him ramp up his knowledge very quickly in order not to embarrass himself. And so with that in mind, I did approach Commissioner Horsley with the idea of rotating the chair, as we have done on one-year basis in the last few years anyway. And so I think he's agreed to accept. I would just say that it really did help ramp up my knowledge being the chair for the past year. Put me on the spot. But the best thing about it was that it's really so easy to work with the staff. Jen and Chris make things so easy. They're very responsive to things that I've asked them to do. And I think with the team in place, it's good that Commissioner Hoppenstadt was reelected. That's great. So we'll have a good team going forward here. And I would like to nominate Scott Horsley to serve as chair, and we can discuss the other positions in a minute. Is there a second?
I would second that. And at the same time, I'd just like to say thank you, Mark, for your outstanding leadership over the last year. You've been a really excellent chairperson. And I'm sure Scott is going to pick up those reins and carry us forward just outstandingly.
It's been moved and seconded to elect Scott Horsley as the chairman of the Katuitt Water Commission. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
You may now give your acceptance speech.
No, I appreciate it, and I've really enjoyed serving the first year. This has been a great honor, an opportunity to serve the community, and I think we're doing some great things. And I want to echo Mark's comments. Looking forward to working closer with you, Chris, and Jen, and the rest of the staff. My experience has been totally positive working with you so far, so I look forward to getting involved. And I know Mark suggested maybe some regular get-togethers, and Jen, maybe I'll give you a call tomorrow if that's okay, to kind of check in on what a good schedule might be for us. And
Sure.
I also want to echo Mark's comment that I'm really glad Tom's going to stick with us. He's got the most knowledge here. He's been with us for a few years, so thank you, Tom, for stepping up again, and looking forward to working with everybody. So thank you.
Thank you, Scott. We'll have to also assign commissioners to both the bylaw committee and the policy advisory commission. Is that right? So Tom, you're on the policy committee right now. Do you want to stay on that, or does it matter to you?
So we didn't do a lot this year, but we did, try to put in together a plan for moving forward in terms of capital expenses. So sure, I'd love to stay.
Okay. And I'll rotate to the bylaw committee. If you can let the bylaw committee know, Jen.
Yep, I'll let the
great.
PRUCOM chair know tomorrow.
Okay, great. Good. So we're almost there.
Set the next meeting.
Set up the next meeting. We have August, the third Wednesday in August. What would that be?
19th.
That would be the 19th.
I actually do have a conflict there. My first chair meeting.
I said Wednesday, didn't I?
Yeah, I've got 19th, I believe that is, August 19th. I'm making a presentation of the Wacoit Bay Estuary Program at 7 p.m. that I committed to.
Okay.
So that might be a little tight, unless we do it a little earlier.
Especially if you're going to do a workshop.
Well, that's actually,
gonna-
maybe that's a good question. What is the best time for a public workshop? Would it be?
It wouldn't be 5. It wouldn't be 5. It would have to be 7, I think. People want to come home and get dinner, and so I think we're not going to move it up. I think we'd have to move it out, Scott. So that would be the 26th.
Yep. That's
all
okay
right.
with me. Yep. At 5 o'clock.
That gives us more time to plan it too.
Okay.
Not too close to Labor Day.
And 5, so that we can have a workshop where we get some participants.
Well, no, I think it should be later in the evening. I would say 6:30 or 7 even. But
Well,
it
you
won't
would
be my
want
meeting. So Scott, you'll have to figure that out and let us
Well,
know.
I think it would be good to just talk a little bit now to get everybody's opinion on what's the best time. Somebody said, 6:30 or 7 is dinner time. Is it better for people, generally speaking, to do a 5 o'clock? strikes me that may be
I just think
better.
if we want to get more public participation, we would do it later, but maybe I'm wrong.
What do others think?
There. Maybe we should hear from Roger.
Roger, do you have any thoughts on that?
None at all. I can't help you with, the proper time. I'm
Yeah.
retired, so it doesn't matter to me. Whether you have a public meeting on 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, or 7 o'clock. I do feel sorry for people that work, and I would say 7 o'clock for that. But if we have to have this outside, then 7 o'clock is kind of late because of the light.
Yeah, I think we're probably resigned ourselves to doing it by Zoom again. But so Scott, I would say either 6:30 or 7.
Okay.
If you want people to be able to have a chance to get home from work.
Okay.
And we're going to do that in place of the regular meeting, right? You don't want to do a regular meeting at 5 and then a workshop at 7, correct?
No, we'll have things that have to be voted on, like the lien. We'll do that, but we won't have all the other.
Yeah, my thought is we do it as a regular meeting, Jen, but keep the agenda pretty light and focused on this. And see if maybe we can have some agenda items that if we don't have a lot of attendance and discussion, we could take up. Otherwise, we make this the focus. But why don't I'll give you a call tomorrow, Jen. Why don't we discuss that in terms of putting an agenda together? And I'll get an email out right away to Jim Danhauser to see if he can get an announcement for us on Tuesday night with that
Excellent.
date. So we're saying 6:30 then, just to confirm, on the 26th, correct? August the 26th, 6:30 p.m. Okay, very good.
I would recommend that we check with Tom Fugala or somebody Andy over at Mashpee, make sure they're available that date.
I'll talk to Andy before then and find out if he's available, if he feels comfortable doing it and everything else.
Okay, that'd be great, Chris.
Great.
Thanks.
Yep.
Is there any other business to come before the commission tonight? Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting at 6:31? I went 1 minute over my hour-and-a-half minute limit.
So moved.
Did good.
Is there a second to adjourn? All in favor of adjourning at 6:31, say aye.
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 Opposed, it's unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Thanks,
Good night,
everyone.
folks.
Great to see
Good night,
you.
guys. Thank you.